Grant Thornton's recent report entitled Emerging Markets Opportunity Index High Growth Economies has ranked South Africa as the leading emerging economy on the African continent, ahead of Nigeria in terms of potential investment destinations. Joining us now to discuss the survey is Johan Blichnout. He's the managing partner of Grant Thornton Pretoria. Mr. Blichnout, thank you so much. This big debate that we've always been having with economists, is Nigeria about to take over South Africa's place as the kind of big engine on the continent? Your survey says differently. What does it point to in terms of the South African economy that gives it that edge over Nigeria?
I think there are a number of issues or matters that South Africa's economy has an edge. I think the very first one is the GDP per capita, which is in South Africa's case nearly 4 times that of Nigeria. Nonetheless, what is something that we have to watch is that Nigeria moved up nine places in the survey from last year up to number 17, and we've moved up one from 15 to 14. Clearly, the two drivers on the African continent is Nigeria and South Africa. South Africa traditionally, up to now, has been the gateway to Africa and has traded as such. But I think we'd be very naive if we weren't be very careful to see this developing economy together with ours, and we must make sure that we keep on doing the right things and do some things better, I think.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, if one looks at the South African economy, it's very diversified. It has a very stable financial base. Its regulatory framework is very stable. If one looks at those issues and compare it to Nigeria, are we as in danger of losing our place as some analysts make it out to be?
I think South Africans are often very hard on ourselves, and there are many things that we can be very proud of. Let's just look at a few of them. We have our banking sector is robust, well regulated, highly respected, in the top 10 in the world. If you look at our Johannesburg Stock Exchange, one of the top 20 in the world. If you look at our regulatory framework, our New Companies Act, our Tax Act, clearly this is the signs of a very good economy. And there are many more. The leftover of the World Cup, our good infrastructure, still gives us the edge, I believe. If you go into these countries in Africa, clearly the infrastructure needs a lot of development. Ours is there and in place, and in many cases just needs a bit of maintenance. Mm-hmm. I think that the threats that we will have will come from other sources. Now,
let's talk about the perception. I mean, we've had quite a gloomy outlook off the back of the strikes in the mining sector, potential job losses that people are anticipating. And of course, tomorrow, President Jacob Zuma announces his State of the Nation address, with a lot of people looking out. You conducted the survey coming toward the end of last year. The findings that where people are quite optimistic about the economy off the back of infrastructure, has that changed, especially if we compare it with the kind of data that's more recent?
Well, the Grant Thornton new research will only come out at the end of this quarter. We have to put all these things in context. The whole world's economy is under pressure. If you take the world's largest economies, I saw some statistics the other day that China's employment is under pressure. Why should we be excluded from it? It's much more important that we in Africa say, how do we maintain those things that are necessary to bring the foreign direct investment into the country? And that's simple. We need skills. That's the one thing we find right across the world, that businessmen tell us we have a problem finding people with the right kind of education. We have a problem with the way we educate our people. So if we had to look at just those two things, the next thing, they want labor stability. I think that the labor unrest we've had already last year, and that seems to be still looming going forward, is not something that makes an international investor very comfortable. Don't forget, they're parting with their funds into somewhere else. However, we've got a very good exchange control regulation, which for most people doesn't really exist. Mm-hmm. So at least they know they can get their money out, they know there's a good stock exchange, but we have to really work on these things that we've known for a number of years. And I think the President 5 years ago said that education, hospitals, job creation, youth unemployment. But look at our youth unemployment. 25% youth unemployment. That's the unemployment in Spain. In fact, youth unemployment in Spain is significally higher.
Well, I think that's the point that the President made at the World Economic Forum in Davos, when CNBC hosted the debate around de-risking Africa. And the point is that youth unemployment is not peculiar to Africa. No. But of course, there are peculiar issues on the continent that does make us a place where people think twice in terms of coming. Talk us through some of the positives around around emerging markets on the African continent and South Africa in particular that make us and continue to make us, despite our obvious challenges, an attractive investment destination?
I think in doing that, you have to put yourself once again in the shoes of an investor. What do we find if we look around the world? Low growth environment, low employment. If you look at some of the highest growth in the world, you find in Africa. In fact, in sub-Saharan Africa, some of the highest growth, yes, it comes off a low base, is India. But if I had to look at where I put my money to try and make it grow, it has to be somewhere in Africa. Where will I find an environment where I can bring my money in safely, easily, without cartels or whatever? It would be in South Africa. Interesting, in the survey, 80% of South Africa's businesses that we surveyed indicated that they want to expand into Africa, and another 14 odd or 15 odd into the rest of the world. So it is still so that we are the economic powerhouse. I mean, just look at power consumption. We're the economic powerhouse for Africa. We have the infrastructure, we have the ability, we have the skill sets. But my concern is, how long will it last if we don't keep on funding, fueling this economic fire with the right kind of skills, the right educated people, a motivated workforce, a stable workforce, people that clearly show the world, we here, we want you to be here, and people say, I want to join you.
If one takes what people said about the expectations in terms of government's infrastructure rollout and the kind of enthusiasm that was there, President Zuma is expected to make some further announcements tomorrow on some of the public-private partnerships and some of the initiatives. What has the survey found in terms of what the perception is around the stimulus package? What are businesses in South Africa saying about it?
The survey didn't address that as an individual direct question. However, other research of ours has shown that any kind of investment in infrastructure development has a benefit because it has a spill-off in job creation. Mm-hmm. And job creation, many of them, if we do them well, could create jobs for those who are unemployed. There's no use creating jobs and just getting the already employed moving up to a higher paid job. That's something that we have to be very careful of. But once again, for me, we must use the momentum caused by that to try and find a stimulus package for increasing skills. Everybody I talk to, even in this market, even in a growth rate today announced the first quarter, I think 2.3, 2.4%, has a problem with skills. Not with workforce, with skills. What happens if we go to 4%? What happens? We get an inflation of wages on the upper end, and the bottom end still suffers. So we must use the economic force generated by these initiatives to use it wisely.
Final question, Mr. Blechner. What is our position, vis-a-vis the rest of the emerging markets? How is South Africa positioning?
Well, as I said, we're number 14 of the emerging markets. Of course, number 1 is China, number 2 is India, number 3 is Russia.
All our BRICS partners.
Of course, Brazil has moved up above Mexico. But what I found fascinating was that our economy, once again, our GDP per capita is higher than that of China and that of India. Now that's interesting. That's good news. It says that that what we generate is because of our lower number of people that we have in the country. The others have very vast populations. We must make sure that we can continue with that, because that builds wealth, it builds a future, it builds a stable environment, and a stable environment builds foreign direct investment.